Hi everyone, welcome to my vlogging channel. Today I wanted to make a video on 5 tips for getting through your first trimester of pregnancy. I am currently about 19 weeks pregnant. I wanted to make a video to help others because I feel like social media really romanticizes pregnancy and makes it look like pregnancy is just so amazing and it's such an easy process to get through and people cater to you, and I see these women like looking incredibly glamorous, you know, in these pregnancy pictures that I see on social media. And I also see women with like huge smiles on their face, like they're having the time of their life, and I feel like that's so far from the truth. So I really kind of wanted to help others by sharing some tips on how I got through my first trimester of pregnancy. When you're pregnant, it's so much different than what I thought, what I had in my mind that it would be like. I didn't think it would be half as hard. You really have to be like strong, both emotionally and physically, because your body like goes through so many changes at such like a rapid pace, and it can be very overwhelming. Like every, you know, woman has a different experience, a different pregnancy. You know, some women have a very easy, you know, pregnancy with little nausea. Other women, like myself, have more intense symptoms, and it definitely can take a toll emotionally and physically. I think it was about 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I can't remember, you know, exactly, but around that time I was diagnosed with hyperemesis gravidarum, and basically what that is you're throwing up a lot more than what someone typically will throw up during their pregnancy. So during this time, it was incredibly hard for me to keep things down. My nausea was, I would say, at an intense level for almost like 3 months or so. And what that looked like is me just feeling like I was going to throw up at any moment. On my really, really bad days, I would throw up about 8 times a day. But nobody ever told me that like, when you get up, there's this like immense pressure on the bottom half of your torso. It's so interesting. I'm like, how come nobody ever really mentioned that? But yeah, it feels like you're almost like falling apart. But I, you know, would imagine it's because all your internal organs are being pushed up, and then the baby is pretty much taking over the bottom half of your abdomen. So that's what it probably is, the baby. I remember my husband would come in and be like, well, what do you want me to get, you know, from the grocery store? What do you want for dinner? And I'd be like, please stop, you know, don't talk about food with me, like don't. And he, you know, sometimes we'd continue the conversation and I'd literally throw up right then and there. So that's how queasy I was, and like how I had to kind of, you know, tiptoe around conversations about food for a while, for a few months, because it affected me that strongly. The first thought that would enter into my mind when I went into a store is like, where are the garbage cans? And I still kind of feel a little bit like that, but I definitely feel more in control now that I'm entering my second trimester. Now to get to like the 5 tips for getting through your first trimester of pregnancy. Some of these tips I knew beforehand, some of them I learned along the way. So I hope that, you know, these things that I learned will help to make your pregnancy easier to get through. So the first thing I would like to talk about are prenatal vitamins. Yes, they're very important for the baby's development, and you want to take a prenatal vitamin that has folic acid, because that's also critical for the baby's development. If I had to say one thing, it would be that I would recommend for you to take those vitamins prior to you conceiving. If you're trying to conceive, like, make sure you're already starting to take your, you're taking your prenatal vitamins, because that's going to help prepare your body, provide the nutrients to the baby that it needs. So I remember I started taking them like 2 months beforehand. And the reason why they're also important to take is because when you experience, if you're, one of the lucky few to experience, this nausea through the first trimester of your pregnancy, like, it's gonna help baby get the nutrients it needs if you start taking your prenatal vitamins early, especially since you might have a tough time during your pregnancy keeping things down. So tip number 2, moving on, would be to take it day by day, especially during your first trimester. Celebrate those really small achievements. Maybe you only threw up 6 times today. Yesterday it was 8. That's a little less. Celebrate that, pat yourself on the back. You definitely want to practice mindfulness, like I mentioned earlier. You want to really try to stay in the moment and not think ahead, like not overwhelm yourself and say, oh my gosh, what if this nausea lasts the whole entire 8-9 months, like you don't want to think like that, because it's going to make that day go so much slower. So you really just kind of want to find things to distract yourself, find things to do, watch Netflix, binge on a show, write if you can do that. Draw, just keep yourself busy with activities that, don't involve a ton of energy, but that will kind of keep your mind busy. Another tip number 3, would be to not be shy when you're conversing with your doctor. You want to make sure that if you have questions, you ask them. I know that, things can be Googled and whatnot, but having a conversation with another individual, especially one who's a professional, can be very, very informative. For instance, today I had a doctor's appointment. I was doing some research and I came upon an article that said that you should get a birth plan. I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. So I was going to kind of ask my doctor what she thought about that, and if she thought it was really necessary. And she said, no, not really. I mean, unless you are looking for some kind of out of the norm experience, during your birth, then just kind of telling your doctor what your preferences might be, if they're in the range of normal, is sufficient, so it kind of saved me energy from doing that. But also that kind of opened up a conversation, a more in-depth conversation, where I learned some things that I wasn't even initially looking for, but were very, interesting and made me feel much more control of my pregnancy. And that was when you give birth, the doctor told me that, they are very big believers that skin-to-skin contact is very beneficial. So they will actually, if your baby's okay, and it doesn't need to be watched for whatever reason, they'll allow you to immediately place the baby on your body for that skin-to-skin contact, and that lasts about, she had mentioned 45 to 60 minutes, so about an hour. Another thing that kind of put my anxiety at bay a little bit, because I initially thought that babies, always go to the nursery, and that, gives me a little bit of anxiety. So I'm like, I want to take a good look at my baby. I want to make sure I'm familiar with what my baby looks like, and they don't bring me a wrong baby later on during the day or something like that. So another thing that she mentioned was that if the baby's okay, once again, they will more than likely keep the baby by my side the whole entire time I'm at the hospital. So I thought that was really amazing to hear, and that just took away a lot of anxiety that I didn't even really knew that I had. The next tip number 4, would be to just kind of make sure that you focus on self-care during this time, especially during the first trimester. Like, do not force yourself to do anything, and don't be afraid to say no. Prior to pregnancy, I felt really like guilty, telling my friends no when they wanted to link up and have brunch or, you know, lunch or whatever, you know, maybe go shopping at the mall. But like during this pregnancy, like I have had no shame whatsoever, because I just don't, you know, I just don't have the energy that I did prior to pregnancy. I'm creating a human, you know, that takes a lot of energy. So I really, you know, have had to say no quite a few times and have had to be okay with that. Even you know, I can get a little sad that I'm not able to physically do the things that I was able to do prior to pregnancy. But I have to think about myself and my needs a little bit more now, and my baby's needs. With that, you know, listen to your body. Like, make sure that you're, you know, when your body is telling you that it's tired, you're yawning, you know, you're kind of already nodding off a little bit, like, take a nap, you know, don't feel guilty about it. When you're hungry, eat. And then alongside with that, with like, you know, making sure that you're focusing on your self-care, like, do things that will help you after the birth of your baby. I know a lot of people get like stretch marks and things like that, you know, during your pregnancy, and that there's a genetic predisposition for that. I understand. But there's also things that you can do to help prevent it, help decrease the likelihood of it occurring. Put lotion on every day, you know, on that belly, put lotion, you know, make sure you're slathering yourself in lotion so that, you know, you're able to stay hydrated, you know, especially so in that area. And then along with that, water, drinking lots of water helps as well. All in all, you might get stretch marks. I have a genetic predisposition for stretch marks. You know, I can't do anything about that, but I'm only going to worry about the things that I can control, you know, and that is, you know, helping to set myself up, you know, for an increased likelihood of success. So I am going to do those little things that may make a big difference towards the end. Putting on lotion and drinking lots of water. Tip number 5, last tip for you guys, don't be afraid to seek help, okay? So you're going to find yourself more tired than usual and more incapable of doing some things that you were able to do prior to your pregnancy. I know that before pregnancy, I did most of the cooking in my household for my husband. But during pregnancy, those roles reversed because it was very difficult for me to be around food, for me to hear about food, for me to smell food. All those things would trigger me to throw up. So of course, you know, at that time I was incapable of being able to, you know, do those things that I used to do. So I had to lean on my husband a lot during that time to help me with that, and thank God he was an amazing support system, you know, and really helped me get through that time by taking on that responsibility. And only now is where I'm able to sort of, you know, meet him halfway there with that. So, and I only can see it getting better moving forward as my nausea continues to subside even further. But like also, you know, maybe you don't have a husband, but maybe, you know, you have another significant other who can help you with some of those needs, like your mom or dad. At one point, I remember I was really craving something that I really didn't even know how to make prior to pregnancy. It's like a cultural dish. And I asked my mom, can you make that? And, you know, she did. She came over and she made that. And something so small meant so much to me because that was like one of the few foods she had made sancocho. It's like Dominican soup. It's so good. But anyway, she made that, and that was actually one of the few things that I could tolerate. So, you know, something so small like that can mean so much for somebody. Another thing I did that goes along with seeking help is I researched a simple way of researching is just to Google things. Like, I remember, you know, I wasn't sure. I know that there's like a bunch of limitations of what pregnant women can eat or not. So I try my best to look up certain, you know, foods before I decide that I'm going to eat them. Let's say I'm going to make a, you know, a meal of some kind, then I'll look up the ingredients and see if it's okay to eat during, you know, your pregnancy. It's okay to eat that. For example, I wanted to have a salad, and I remember like getting the ingredients together. I usually put croutons in it, you know, and like Parmesan cheese and Caesar dressing and all of that. And then I like was looking up the ingredients, and some of them were okay, but one thing that stuck out was like they had mentioned something about dressing being, you know, possibly not okay because they might contain egg yolk, and you kind of want to stay away from raw eggs during pregnancy. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I will have a different type of dressing. I'll look up a different type of dressing that doesn't consist of eggs, okay? So I can have my salad just with some modifications. And, you know, I really like Caesar dressing. So the next time I went to the store, I remembered that I shouldn't really probably eat that dressing, that particular Caesar dressing, because they had eggs in it. So I went ahead to like the vegan aisle, and I found a vegan dressing, and it was just as good. It's just as good. So I've been eating that. So anyway, those are my tips for how to get through your first trimester of pregnancy. Like I mentioned, I'm currently 19 weeks pregnant. I'm gonna get up and show you guys what my belly bump looks like. I'm finally showing a little bit. So I don't know if you can really kind of see. Anyway, I'm definitely showing. It's been quite an interesting ride. I'm a first-time mom, so all these experiences, you could probably have guessed that by now. So I probably will make another video about how to get through your second trimester. I don't know. But if you like this video, please let me know. Give it a thumbs up. And I don't know, if you want me to make another video on another topic that's pregnancy related or whatever, just, you know, say that in the comments. So it was very nice to talk to you guys and to be able to help you in getting through your pregnancy. If I can help at least one of you, then that's enough for me. So with that said, bye-bye. See you later.